Hello chess friends and welcome to Azarov Chess channel and welcome back to the TCEC Season 26 Superfinals between the two top engines Stockfish 16 and the Leela0. As I'm recording this video, the result is +8 for the Stockfish engine, so after 62 rounds Stockfish has now 35 points and Leela0 has only 27 points. It's I think a decisive result. It's fair to say that Stockfish is I think a new winner of a new TCEC season. I don't think that Leela0 can catch up anymore with the Stockfish engine. Of course, maybe something dramatic can change, but I don't think so, because where Leela0 only plays a draw with the white pieces in this pre-ranged openings, Stockfish simply wins this reverse games. That's I think a huge difference. There are only a couple of pairings in which Leela0 won the game and managed to play a draw in the reverse game, but usually Stockfish is dominating all openings that they played in all of the strategic battles, in all of tactical battles. Stockfish was always better than Leela0. So I've sorted out now the game that you have requested now several times here on my YouTube chess channel. This is now the round 54, and this game is I think the most spectacular game from this TCEC Season 26 Superfinal, with really dirty, spectacular tactics all over the board. In my opinion, really the best game so far for sure. So in the reverse game, we have to also mention Stockfish played a draw with the black pieces against Leela0. Let's see now the reverse game where Stockfish has now the white pieces and Leela0 has now the black pieces. So with the white pieces, the fish open with move d4. We have knight to f6 by Leela0, but this opening theory, as we mentioned, is still pre-arranged by the organizer. We have now the move g6, and let's repeat again. I've seen again the same question all over again here on my YouTube chess channel. Why are these openings pre-arranged by the organizer? Why don't the engines play their own openings? If that would be the case, I think Stockfish and Leela0 would play only, I don't know, maybe the Queen's Gambit declined, Ruy Lopez, Italian opening, Murphy defense, Berlin defense, maybe the Petrov would be on the board, Ragos in defense. These are, I think, the most solid but also most drawish openings. So that's why if the engines would play the best openings, I think the games would always end with a draw. So that's why the organizer is spicing up the event a little bit by playing a slightly dubious opening for one engine, and then this engine has to defend its position, and then the engine with an advantage has to of course convert disadvantages into win. I hope that I could explain you this because we don't want to see only draws. I think draws are also very important, but from a I don't know, learning point of view, when we can maybe download many draws in the Ruy Lopez, in the Italian opening, I don't know, in the Queen's Gambit decline, and then you have a solid base how to play really properly this best openings, that I would say. But now we're in the King's Indian defense in the Sämisch variation, which is of course not the optimal way to proceed for black. The King's Indian defense is still a risky opening, especially also the pre-arranged opening that you see now is simply not the optimal way how to even play against the Sämisch variation. So after move g6, as I said, we're still in the pre-arranged opening. Knight to c3, bishop to g7, e4, d6, f3. We have now the so-called Sämisch variation. The idea is clear. We want to play bishop to e3, queen to d2, queenside castling, h4, g4, launching a flank attack, knight from g to e2. So it's, I think, the most powerful and most aggressive line against the King's Indian structure. We have now the move e5, breaking and entering here in the center of the board. Knight to e7, knight to e2. We have kingside castling. Now bishop to g5. E takes d4. We have knight takes d4, knight to c6. Still, we're in the pre-arranged opening. Knight to c2 here by the Stockfish engine, bishop to e6, and now bishop to e2, h6, kicking away the bishop, bishop to h4, g5, and after bishop to f2, now we're in the last move that was prearranged by the organizer, which is now the move knight to e5. So as I said, Leela0 would, I think, never play the move knight to e5, but the Stockfish had to also play the reverse game, and as I mentioned, Stockfish managed to somehow squeeze a draw out of this slightly bad opening, I would say, here for black. The best choice instead of knight to e5 is to play knight to h5, simply going for the f4 square after something like g3. Then you can break and enter here with move f5, and the game is pretty dynamic with good opportunities for both sides. Of course, even in this line, white is slightly better. It's not like black is taking over here, but the optimal choice is here to play knight to h5. So as I said, the pre-arranged challenge move was now to move knight to e5. That was the position that the engines have to play, and from this point on, the engines are calculating the position for themselves. Stockfish continues with knight to e3, protects simply the c4 pawn. We have knight to g6, again going for the f4 weakness. We have now queen to c2 and now c6, controlling the d5 square. That's now the main issue. Although now the d5 is very well protected, you're leaving now yourself a weak pawn, a strategic disadvantage in the position, which is of course now the weak pawn on d6. We have queenside castling, and now which is of course immediately attacking the d6 pawn, and Leela0 goes immediately into an aggressive attack with the move b5. Good move by Leela0, I would say, opening up the position immediately. In this opposite side attack games, when the kings are on opposite sides, you don't wait a second. You have to be aggressive, you have to be active, you have to somehow open a position before your opponent is opening your position on your side of the board. So b5 makes really sense here by Leela0. The fish improves simply the position of the king. King to b1, b4. Leela0 continues the pressure. Knight to a4. We have queen to e7, and now Stockfish of course goes also for the king side counter-attack. You see now both engines, as promised, have now good chances on their attacking sides. We have knight to h4, but now the fish doesn't want to take the knight immediately, doesn't want to even lock the position too much, plays now simply g3. This is the way to go, and that's the beauty about the Stockfish engine. Stockfish never counts material. Stockfish is always evaluating the position. How can I open the position? How can I be aggressive? How can I place my pieces on the most optimal squares? How can I open the position in front of the king? How to use my rooks? How to really include all of my pieces into the attack? That's, I think, very thematic how the fish is playing. Even after knight to g6, Stockfish sacrifices another pawn with the move f4. Simply goes aggressively into the game, and that's the spirit of this opposite side attack games. You don't count material, you just want to open a position in front of your opponent's king. After f4, we have g takes f4, g takes f4, knight to f4. Stockfish has lost now 2 pawns, but has now clear open files, clear open targets here, especially on the g file. The king could be endangered. Very interesting position created here by the Stockfish engine. We have bishop to g3. Here you cannot play, I think, rook from d to g1. You would love to play that, including more attackers into the game, but then knight to h3 would, I think, solve all of the positional and tactical problems here for black. Knight to h3, you grab this bishop, and black has, I think, here a solid game. So after bishop to g3, that's why knight to e2. We have here bishop to d6. Stockfish doesn't want to even take out the knight immediately. Bishop to d6, first of all, the counterattack against the queen. We have queen to d8. The problem here for black is that something like queen to b7 is not working. Seems tempting. You're trying maybe to keep the queen on the b file where it could be used maybe in the attack. But then after something like e5, the knight doesn't have even so many good squares. We are trying maybe knight to e8. Now we can pick up the knight here. And after something like knight to d6, look at this. E takes d6. Although black is continuing the game with the bishop pair in an open battle, and the bishops are very good in open battles. Actually, white's king is pretty solid, but black's king is simply exposed. As I mentioned, the g file, h file is now crucial here. You're trying maybe to get a queen here, then this knight is coming. Look at this, you're delivering a check. This is just one line. Of course, black doesn't have to play the game like this, but I wanted to show you, look at this, queen to f2, trying bishop to g6, but now knight to g4, knight to f6, knight to h6, d7. Look at this pawn is marching. So both of this knights and this supported pass pawn, I think, would create really madness in black's position. So that's why this move queen to b7 is not working, because of the possibility of the move e5. So that's why for bishop to d6, Leela0 played simply queen to d8. Is calculating now, okay, maybe I can do something here. Maybe I can get after bishop to f8 this bishop, then my bishop is very powerful, then I have at least new attacking chances. But here in the continuation after queen to d8, the fish continues simply to improve its minor pieces. Stockfish, as I said, is not evaluating pure material here. Stockfish evaluates always the piece activity. And I think how Stockfish sees maybe this position is that actually in this position, black is playing without the rook so far. This rook has not participated so far in the game, so it's almost like Stockfish is playing here with an extra piece. So we have here after knight to c5, notice that the knight doesn't have good squares to escape. You could maybe try here to play knight to c3 to somehow at least give the knight and open the position on the b file. But after b takes c3, b takes c3, then bishop to f4 is coming. Again, h6 very weak. You're trying queen to b6, we can cover. You're trying maybe something like a5. Look at this, bishop to h6. The position is collapsing here. e5, game over, I would say here. Here for black. So this is not working. So after move knight to c5, that's why bishop to g4 was played by Leela0, protecting so far the knight, hoping maybe here Stockfish to take the knight to g4 here and maybe simplify the game. But now Stockfish played, I think, simply the best move of this particular game. This move is so epic, this move is so brutal, and you could maybe say, okay, I would play even the same move, but I would say many of us would even maybe play the same move, but I'm not sure how many of us can calculate so far now like the Stockfish engine. Usually, look at this, what Leela0 was probably hoping for is that maybe Stockfish takes here, knight to g4, then after something like, I don't know, knight to c3, again messing up the position here in front of the king, then after b takes c3, look at this, knight to g4, then you're trying this one in h5, because you cannot take with this one, with the rook here from the d, you cannot attack here the position with the move rook to d1, rook from d to g1, because the bishop is hanging here. So that's why here after rook from h to g1, now you can lock the position with move h5. And I think Leela0 calculated maybe this position like this, that this should be pretty solid here. This b file will be probably opened with the support of the bishop. There are at least some chances here. But after move bishop to g4, Stockfish played now a very, very interesting move. Played now the move bishop to e5. Creates, of course, immediately an attack against the queen. And it seems so, okay, this is a natural move because we have an attack against the queen. But actually, after bishop to e5, Leela plays now knight to c3, which makes, I think, here this position really, really beautiful, because after b takes c3, Stockfish lost now the rook here on d1. So Stockfish loses the exchange, but you see now the meme plan here by the Stockfish engine. After bishop to d1, rook to d1, queen drops back to b6, and now knight to f5. So as I said, Stockfish almost evaluates this position like Leela is not playing with the rook on a8. It's like Stockfish is playing with the 3 versus 2 minor pieces here, and will eventually include now the rook into the game. So let's see really this beautiful idea. Bishop to e5. If you play instead of the move bishop to e5, I think with knight to c3, black could maybe get out of this tactical mess. Look at this, knight to g4, and now at least the bishop gets liberated. This one is weak, maybe knight cannot be included into the game. But with bishop to e5, Stockfish sacrificed the exchange and gets now the powerful knight on f5. Bishop on g7, very weak. Rook is going on the g file. From this point on, I think this is really, really an epic battle. So here we have rook from f to d8. Leela0 is trying somehow to simplify the game. We have rook to g1 here by Stockfish. If you try here queen to c5 instead of rook from f to d8, then we simply play something like this. Queen to g2, we're trying to deliver checkmate. You're trying maybe something like knight to h5, we take, and now you have to give up the queen. Game over. You maybe can try knight to g7, but f6 again wins the game. So no good moves anymore here for black. So after knight to f5, you don't have time to pick up here the knight on c5, so that's why rook from f to d8. But Stockfish, of course, continues the pressure here on the g file. We have b takes c3, comes with a check. Stockfish drops back, and Leela0 continues now with knight to g4. If you try something like, I don't know, queen to b2, then queen takes b2, c takes b2. Now we pick up the pawn with the king, and you're trying maybe to escape. No good checks are possible anyway because this bishop is controlling that. Then we pick up this one, and here I think white is again winning. White will simply win this piece on g7, would continue with 3 minor pieces, and the rook against 2 rooks and a minor piece. The king, black's king, is still endangered, so not a good position, I would say, here for black. So that's why after king to a1, when Stockfish escaped, Leela0 didn't go for the trades of queens. Played now knight to g4. We have bishop takes g7. Look at this, Leela0 played also a dirty trap, because if you try rook to g4, to take the knight, then rook to d1 would actually win the game. You have to now step back with the queen. You have to take out now the rook, but now the queen gets deflected from the square b2, and actually Leela0 would deliver a checkmate here. So that's why after knight to g4, Stockfish played now the correct move, plays now bishop to g7. We have now h5. Queen takes c3. We have now queen to c5. Still Stockfish is continuing the game with down the exchange, but now simply improves the position of the rook. We have king to h7 and now queen to c1. Trying, of course, somehow to maybe get rid of this knight on g4 and then play something like queen to h6. That's now, I think, the main tactical goal here for white. So we have now rook to d3. Only move here by Leela0 to defend his position. For instance, if you try something like f6, we can simply take bishop to f6. You could try maybe knight to f6, but now queen to h6, as I said, simply wins the game. So the knight has to stay here on g4, and Leela0 recognized that in order to stay in the game, you have to protect your h5 pawn to somehow keep your knight on the g4. But Stockfish continues with queen to g5. The problem is now queen to c4 is not working because you get queen to h5, as I said, and then you get checkmated on h8. So that's why you have to play now rook to h3. Leela0 also played here the only defensive moves. But Stockfish continues with bishop to d4, hits now the queen. Queen drops back to f8. You have to now protect the g7 and also the h6 square. Stockfish continues with knight to d6. Simply continues the attacking flow. Again, queen to d6 is not working because the f7 is then collapsing, and then again it's a beautiful checkmate. So that's why f6, queen to f5 a check, king to h8, and now queen to e6, king to h7, and now e5, putting more pressure against the pawn on f6. Obviously you cannot take because of the activity by the rook against the queen on the f-file. So here c5 by Leela, counterattack here against this bishop, queen to f5, again a new counterattack by Stockfish, a beautiful check, king to h8, and now bishop to b2. What should you do? There are not many things that can be done by black, but I think every line is simply bad. For instance, you could try rook to d8 somehow to compete against this unpleasant knight. This wasn't played in the game, but this is actually the move that my Stockfish engine at home suggests that black should do. But even in this scenario, black is, I think, lost. We'll simply continue here with queen to g6. You're trying maybe to somehow trade off the queens, but knight to f7 is, I think, winning the game. But I think in this line, the game is a little bit more simplified because in this continuation, I don't know, knight to e6, you still have this pass, or you still maybe have this one. I'm not sure, but I would say again, game over here for black after something like king to g8, rook to f8, game over. I think with this extra piece, this is not defendable anymore here for black. But after bishop to b2, instead of rook to d8, Leela0 played now rook to h2, wanted to get rid of this very, very nasty bishop that's hitting now indirectly, of course, the king on h8. But now Stockfish continues now with a beautiful e takes f6. Again, what you should do, even if you try again rook to d8 to somehow compete here, then we play knight to e4. You try maybe to sack the exchange, but now we first deliver a check. We trade off the pieces. We play king to b2. In this scenario, maybe it seems so that black is not so bad because black is only down a pawn. But again, look at this. You're trying rook to d4, then the knight is coming here. You're trying maybe to take out this pawn, then the knight is lost. So the activity of black's pieces is again not good. The king is closer to the white's king is closer enough to the action, so this pawn is marching. So again, too many problems. So after e takes f6, you see rook takes b2 is also not working as a tactical goal. So that's why here queen to d6, Leela0 takes finally the piece, but now queen to g6 with again the checkmate threat. Queen to f6 has to be played, and now bishop to c3. Stockfish is down now a whole rook, but now obviously the huge threat is to play the move f7 and then liberate the diagonal for the dark square bishop, and this should be, I think, the most important now tactical goal here by white. So that's why rook to h3. Leela0 doesn't want to tolerate this annoying bishop. Stockfish continues with rook to f5. Really great move. You don't have time, of course, to pick up here the bishop because you get rook to h5. You have to cover takes, and again, it's an amazing checkmate. So that's why for rook to f5, rook to h1 by Leela0, it seems so that finally Black's rooks are coming into the game, but Stockfish calculated everything in a good way. Look at this, king to b2. Even if you tried, I don't know, rook to h2, then the king drops back to a3. You're trying maybe rook to d8, but again f7, and the game should be over. You're trying, I don't know, rook to d4. We take. Now we push the pawn further. You don't have a good check, and again you're trying maybe knight to h6, but now we can even play something like this. So it's a line that Leela0 didn't play, but look at this. Even in this wild tactical sequence, Stockfish is winning. For instance, you're trying king to g7. Now we simply played it like this. Now we deliver a check, and after rook to e5, the king gets deflected from the defense of the queen. Again, game over. Even if you trade off the queens, obviously there's nothing that can be done. This knight has to be sacrificed now for a pawn. You're trying to get closer, but with rook to f4, rook to h3, king to a4, there's nothing that can stop now this pawn on the d file. So you see, rook to h2 is seemingly good, but actually it's not working. Let's repeat again. You could maybe somehow lock this diagonal, but it's simply not working because of the beautiful activity here by white's pieces. So again, the queen is lost, game over. So that's why for king to b2, we have a rook to b8 here by Leela0, trying to deliver somehow a check, somehow spice up the game here on the queen side, but Stockfish calculated, as I said, everything in a good way. King to a3, good move. There's no good check simply anymore for Leela0. Rook to h3 now by Leela0, and now Stockfish plays rook to h5. We have a rook to h5, but Stockfish doesn't even take the pawn immediately. Now comes finally the power of the bishop. Now f7. Very wild stuff. Leela0 had to cover now with rook to e5. Now we have queen to g4. A really crazy position. The rook is still lost. There is now again a new tactical threat with queen to h5 and similar stuff. The rook is pinned. Here in the continuation we have queen to f5. Stockfish grabs now this rook, but now also this rook is hanging. Finally, the poor rook came into the game through the square b8, but now it will be lost, and after king to h7 and bishop to b8, obviously white is winning the game. So Stockfish sacrificed everything in order to activate this beautiful dark square bishop, and now it's of course a winning endgame here for white. We have queen to f6, queen to h3 check. Stockfish delivered a couple of checks, attacked the queen, and now simply got the king closer. Again a new check, and now after a couple more moves, Stockfish traded off the queens, and now after queen to f4, Stockfish grabbed now this pawn, and in this particular position Leela0 resigned. So let's go back again to this amazing tactical sequence. So after king to a3, Stockfish calculated that the king is perfectly fine. Leela0 plays here the only move, rook to h3, in order somehow to get rid of this very annoying bishop. But now rook to h5, rook takes h5. Now finally the rook gets deflected, and now f7. Really crazy position. Here we have a rook to e5, Stockfish takes, the rook is still hanging, the queen is simply too far away from the action. Now queen to f7, and now bishop to e5 again wins the piece, and here it was game over. So crazy game. I would say here really the most spectacular game from the TCEC season 26 Superfinal. Crazy lines of the Sämisch variation of the King's Indian Defense. As I mentioned, Stockfish managed somehow to pull off a draw in this pre-arranged opening, and I hope that I explained you why these engines are playing these openings. I think these are fun games because humans are also making mistakes in the opening stage. We cannot just follow, I don't know, the optimal openings, because we cannot say which opening is really optimal. But I think the Ruy Lopez, Murphy defense, Berlin defense, Queen's Gambit decline are the most solid openings, and you probably in GM level you'll see also most of the times drawish games between, I don't know, in the game between Fabiano Caruana and Hikaru Nakamura. If they're playing the Murphy defense very often, you'll see also, I don't know, too many draws. So that's why the organizer is spicing up the game, and this was a pretty spicy game. This was a really epic game here played by Stockfish 16. So okay, as I mentioned, Stockfish is now in the lead, has 8 points more than Leela0. If you want to see some other games from this competition and also some other spectacular AI chess games, check out our Content Chess Games Played by Computer series. Here's also the link, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.